All right, everybody, welcome back to Spearfactor. Today we got the Longfins boys with us. Guys, you want to introduce yourselves?
Good. My name is Brian Fern, and I am 48 years old. I've been spearfishing since I was 10 years old.
Yeah, I'm Yangco from Kauai. I've been diving, spearfishing, fishing since I was about 10 years old as well. I'm 42 now. So, yeah, I mean, it's more than just diving. It's definitely a lifestyle here.
Can you tell us a little bit about like the whole, I said the Longfin boys, a bit like kind of describe Longfins, because I think you guys do something kind of unique that could really catch on in other places.
So, Longfins started as any other company. Basically, tried to sell shirts online, trying to make some money, hopefully to generate money to create more product and spearfishing gear, but it failed. Didn't make any money, which I felt is kind of like a blessing in disguise because the path that we're on now is so much more valuable than any monetary product, any product kind of product. And what we're doing now is we're promoting ethical spearfishing, we're promoting sustainability, and we feel like now we're saving lives because we're promoting spearfishing safety, dive safety, and it's something that I don't notice any other brand doing. So we truly feel that we're on to something great, and we're not looking to make any money off of this. We do all this for free because we feel that knowledge should always be free.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that transition when you went from not making any money, which is super strange with spearfishing company, you're not making any money. That's weird. No. And but you went from that to what you're doing now. Like, tell us what you're doing now as far as your higher purpose. This is what really intrigued me about what you were doing.
So I think one of the most important ways to relate is when you first start spearfishing, you're a rank beginner. Your biggest concern is shooting fish, shooting as many fish as you can, trying different fish, seeing what they taste like, learning the habits, learning your hunting techniques. From there, you move up to kind of the glamour phase, which social media has really pushed, trophy phase. I want to shoot a big alua. I want to shoot a 20-pound huku. I want to shoot a ono. You get involved in this trophy aspect of it, and it's not so much of feeding the family as much as look at me, look what I can do. And then you get to the mature Spearo level, which is where we're at and where we try to bring people to, where you're so stoked just to be in the water. It doesn't matter if you go 5 dives deep and never catch a fish, because every time I go, I might see a pot of dolphins. I might see a manta ray. I might swim with a tiger shark. There wasn't a good opportunity to shoot a fish. I may not see anything I wanted, but it doesn't matter because I spent 3 or 4 hours in the water. No social media, no phone calls, nobody bugging me, no stressors of life. Just totally zen myself in the water. What I see is awesome. If I bring a fish home, bonus. So that being said, when you dive ethically, you have to be aware of, like in the state of Hawaii, we have the Department of Land and Natural Resources. They have a pamphlet that shows you seasons of things, minimum size, minimum weight, bag limits to a certain degree. Maui's done that. Nobody else has followed suit. But that's the first thing you should know is, can I even shoot it? And what's the minimum size? And does it have a season? Once you know that, sustainability comes in because now you're concerned with the species life cycle. If I take them too small, it's going to have a negative effect on the breeding and reproduction of the species. If I take them too big, it's going to have the same effect. So there's an ideal range and size for each species to take. And that's another important thing about ethics and sustainability. And then you have the safety aspect, was another point that we promote. Everybody's got to come home. Too many people have been dying as of late in Hawaii. I think we're up to 5 people in the last couple months. And a lot of that because they were by themselves, or another guy got hit by a boat because he didn't have a flag and the boat didn't even know he was there. So we actually teach free spearfishing seminars for kids is how we started. Now we're doing a safety seminar, and we opened it up to all ages because people don't understand the perils of not being safe, not having a good dive partner, not knowing how to adequately spot. All these negative behaviors that people do. They dive on top of each other. They dive bombing each other's fish. They're more concerned with the trophy. And one thing that we always say when we dive together is it doesn't matter who shoots the fish because we're both going to eat. If he shoots it,
Right.
it doesn't make a difference. We got the fish, landed it safely, and everybody's eating. So that's
But
kind of
that I
value.
like. Sorry, I like your point there. About the whole thing. Like I've been numerous times with buddies, and I always made a joke. I'm really good at getting people like their fish, and there'll be times when I don't shoot anything. But I mean, I think you're right. Like I know my buddy Javier who got his big tuna, but I mean, it took four of us to get that tuna, and we ate that thing for a year. And literally, like, I mean, we could feel a village with that thing. But also the satisfaction you get out of seeing that look on your friend's face, and like you said, you're going to eat. I mean, that's the whole point. We were sharing earlier this week. One of my friends, his son got a ahi, 25-pound ahi, and my wife came over. We had sashimi. All the kids came over, and it was just, it's just one of those things. It's just so much better. It feels good because you're not. Um, it was taken ethically the right way, and I could see my friend's son just glowing, knowing like, oh, that was my fish. I caught it. He caught it. He didn't shoot it, but he caught it. And my wife and everybody were eating it. My daughter, who he was they were all just eating it and all that. My son was eating it too. Um, but yeah, the stoke you feel for your friend getting a fish is just epic. It's like when you succeed as a team, because you're right, you can't do it like really. A lot of times you're spotting each other. You can't do it safely without someone there spotting you, especially if you're doing deeper drops. And that's why I just feel so good, man. Like, and again, it's not about the social media. It's about, hey, we go home and eat. And yeah, I could go to the store and buy fish, um, but it sure tastes better when it comes, and it sure feels better when it comes,
But you know what?
Absolutely.
But when you buy fish from the store, you don't know where it came from.
right.
You don't know how long it's been out of the water. Has that been pre-frozen, flash frozen, gassed with CO2 to retain the color? You know, has it been adequately cared for? Because if not, you could potentially get scombroid from it if it's not adequately prepared. You know, so that's kind of the beauty, and that's kind of one of the hallmark factors that I teach my children is this is where your food comes from. It doesn't come from a feedlot or a pool where it's fed antibiotics and hormones to stay alive because the conditions are so terrible. That fish, animal, whatever, it was free range, free roaming until the minute they weren't. And
Right.
you gave a quick kill, took them out of their misery, bled it, cared for the meat properly, you know, cut it down, used every piece of that fish. Like we use the guts and for chum on the next mission. We put the heads and the bones in the garden to fertilize the soil. You can make, dishes out of the skin. You eat the collars. You eat every part of that fish.
Yeah, fish head soup too.
Eat it. You use it for something. You don't just take the top fillets and throw the rest in the trash.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the main reasons why what I catch tastes so good and why I take so much pride in it is the purity of it. You're out there, you're hunting for it. You're in the zone, you make a kill, you're stoked, you respect your catch, you take care of it, you're feeding people with it, people are happy. Just the whole purity of that, that's what I really like about it. It's an adventure altogether.
Yeah, well, I've talked about this before. I don't know. It feels like it taps into a primitive thing where I feel like you have purpose, like,
Mhm.
and everything is like in its purest form. And also, you take an animal's life. and you respect it by the way you prepare it, the way you eat it. And it also teaches your kids, like for me too, that um, things do have to die, but it doesn't to eat. But it doesn't mean we are not gracious for an animal sacrificing itself to eat, and it just makes the world a little bit cleaner of a picture to understand. So it's not like you shouldn't kill animals. Well, we got to eat, or people support this or support that. But you understand how this whole thing works, and if everything's done out of respect, it sure makes everything work a lot better.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think it's far less traumatic for you to go out hunting and handpick something that you want, that you're going to enjoy. It's a circle of life, and it's not feedlot stuff that's atrocious conditions, basically tortured. I mean, this
Yeah.
animal that you're about to consume had a normal life, whatever they wanted to do, until it was time to harvest. So some people may consider it savage, but you take that same person and go, well, where do you get yours fish from? Oh, Whole Foods or the fish market, and it's in a little cube of fillet. Where'd that thing come from? What did that thing go through to get to that point? It was probably soft to arrive in the store than if you came to my house and ate a fish that I caught yesterday.
Yeah, that's the thing that always kind of gets me fired up a little bit, is the whole like you shouldn't kill an animal, and you go to the store and I'm like, do you know what those things go through? Like, it's terrible. I mean, and I'm not saying everything, but I do know the vast majority of those animals are not. I know for one thing, they're not killed with respect the way that we kill them. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody, the good thing is by talking about it, I feel like everybody coming up to kind of gets it. Even if you have a bloodlust and guys are hopefully maturing as Spearos and they still have a little bit of that in there where it's like, I killed it and now I'm eating it. That's kind of cool. And then hopefully that'll involve in, like what you're saying, a more mature Spearo.
A lot of people don't realize too, like for instance, like California, if you're gonna go spearfishing, you got to buy a license, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
That license goes put back into Fish and Game, correct? And it promotes conservation, it promotes sustainability. So a lot of people don't realize who are non-hunters. They're thinking, oh, you just kill anything. Like, well, we contribute more to fish and wildlife than any of you guys do. So they come in and start to think like, oh yeah, I don't really contribute anything. It's like, yeah, we do. We pay for licenses, we pay for the tags. So we do more. And so that's why these people are like so trying to demonize us and stuff like that. Wait a second here. Let me give you a better understanding of things, and then some people are like, oh, okay, it's a lot clearer. And some people are just like, no, I hate you. You kill animals. And just like, oh.
I think we know who those people are.
I think the biggest factor that sets spearfishing apart from everything else is it's completely selective. When you're fishing, you don't know what's going to bite your hook. You don't have a say in it. I mean, to a certain, depending upon what bait you run, you can try to catch something, but there's no say. And once you bring it to the boat, you may have something on there that you didn't want, but it's yours now. With spearfishing, you can find a school of fish, pick the one that's of an optimal size, not too young, not too old. They're not the main breeders. You pick that fish and you have purpose in mind. It's like, I like that fish. I'm going to use it for this. I already know how I'm going to prepare it. And you take that. And as you said with your ahi example, we use one and done. If you get a nice uku and that's enough to feed our 2 families, we're done for the day. We don't need 10 more.
Absolutely.
People that we can shoot 10 more, because you're better off leaving those, and then next week you go and get another one and they're still there, and by leaving them there they just keep getting bigger.
Right. No, it's funny because I myself have kind of changed my mindset a little bit. I guess I don't want to say I'm a trophy hunter because I don't like that title. I feel like I hunt. I have some benchmarks that I want to hit on a certain fish, and I will not shoot anything unless I see something of that size. But like you said, that is it. Like for that year, I did shoot a yellowtail because my freezer died and destroyed all my fish supply, which was terrible. Oh, dude, it was terrible. And in a lot of ways, it was terrible. But I shot this 20-pound yellowtail. I got it home and I was filleting it, and all the kids on the street, you know, because I was filleting it in my garage, and all the kids in the street looking. And I cut it open, and it ended up being a female, just loaded with eggs. And like, to be honest, I was kind of like, man, I wish I could tell, like, you know,
Yeah.
which, so I don't end, because this is like, I told the kids, I go, look at this, because you know, it happens. And I was like, see, these are thousands of eggs that this fish could have put in the environment. And and it wasn't a conscious thing. It was one yellowtail on a patty, but it was like, and by me taking this, I want you to understand something, guys. By me taking this out, all of these fish, all of these yellowtail, these baby eggs are not going to get put back in the system. And now, granted, this is one fish, and that was the first fish I've shot, and actually quite a bit of time. But you know, we ate it and made ceviche. It was delicious. But I try to instill with the kids, like, you know, there's, for everything you do, there is a consequence. And so if I happen to shoot and go for this, I'm going to the spot down in Baja where there's supposedly just gigantic yellowtail, and I have like my idea I want to hit, and I've always wanted to go here for years, but I haven't had a chance. So I'm going to try to go there, and I don't know if it's going to happen because of the virus thing. But I have a fish that I want to hit, and I'm going to hit it, and then you know what? That's going to be it. Like, there's no need. I mean, that'll be it for a while. Like, if I hit that thing, there's no need to go. You know, it's a personal thing, I guess. I don't know.
That's good. That's I totally agree with you on that. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. That's beautiful, and more people should take after that, I think.
Yeah, I see people like demonize guys for shooting billfish too. And I talked to one of the guys about it, and he was like, they don't see like the months of planning. And I'm not just shooting. I let multiple billfish go by, and I take one, and then there's my one. I just wanted to get one of that species for literally my life. That was it. And I think that's good. I think kind of where we kind of have a bypass is, as the sport's growing, it's becoming more and more people in the water and more people taking. So like, if we all do our part and just really stay conscious there, you know, of it, it'll be fine. But like you said, you combine that with social media, and it's like a recipe for just, I mean, Hawaii's pretty fished out. I remember talking to you about that, Alan, and I was diving, and I saw some, I spent a lot of time in the water with the kids, but I did see a couple like huge parrots. And but when I was down in Guam, I mean, that place was like fished out, and I was surprised, and hearing the stories, and then also there hearing the deaths. It's and that's kind of what made me realize what you guys are doing as far as the safety side. That would be a great thing to adopt in a lot of places, and I'm trying to adopt it here. The problem that I'm having here is that A, insurance, B, equipment, and C, we don't have the conditions like you guys. You're like, as far as visibility, or we do have it every now and then, but it's hard to set a class by it and send a bunch of kids. So what I think the remedy is going to be is take like a group of 2 or 3 kids at a time, and then get them to talk to their buddies, and hopefully let everything grow that way, and actually pull people away from fishing, because fishing's awesome. But like you said, with the selective spearing, you have a choice of what fish you get, what size fish you get, and all that stuff like that. But yeah, so can you tell everybody a little bit? That was a long, me talking a long time. I apologize. Can you talk to the guys about, everybody about what it is, what you're doing as far as your safety class, and running those classes, and for the kids on Kauai?
One thing I wanted to tack on to that, what you were just saying,
Yeah.
to that, is what we've noticed when the COVID came out and people were forced to stay home. We saw a huge increase in the amount of people that decided to learn to spearfish, decided to learn to shoreline fish, because they weren't working and they had no income and they needed to provide for their families. And that kind of lit the flame for us to get, with the deaths, of course, but to get the safety, because now you got a greater number of novice divers that are just out there seeing people on social media being like, I want to be like that guy, but have no experience, no training, no knowledge. And when you don't know what you don't know, that's when you get in a lot of trouble.
Absolutely.
It was,
Yeah.
it was weird. It was like we went from like 2 or 3 kids to like 15. Fast after that, I was like, "Oh, there's a lot of people." I was like, "Yeah, but it was good. It was good."
We had it here too, but it was a little bit different. It was very similar, but the thing that was different about it is that people were just going outdoors in general, hiking and everything, because that was the only thing open. You couldn't go to dinner, you couldn't, and I actually kind of loved it because I was just like, I've already doing this. You know what I mean? Like and this just gives us an excuse, and that's kind of why we went on our trip when we went up north and drove like 2,000 miles all through California. And I was like, you see, kids, like this, it doesn't have to necessarily be all about the ocean, but it's just about returning things in natural state and checking everything out and realizing that you don't need to go to a jump house. You don't need any of this stuff. You got the best friggin' world out here, especially where we live in California. There's such diversity. And as much as the politics of the state really frustrate me and annoy me, when you go out in the mountains and there's no service, you don't care about any of that stuff. You know, it's just,
You just did a trip to a cup cocaine, no service, no internet. It was beautiful. It was
yeah,
great. Yeah, I know that,
awesome.
man.
Yeah. So back to your
Yeah.
question.
So basically, what we do in the spearfishing seminar is mostly for beginners or people who are trying it out and want to learn new stuff. We teach them a lot about gear, what gear they should have. We teach them a lot about the spearfishing techniques, what to look for in the underwater environment. We teach them also about their prey, their habitats, where they live, their behaviors, and all of that. We even go as far as teaching them about dangerous ocean conditions, how to manage risks, and then we go to like dive safety, how to blackout procedures, what to look for, what to do, and all of that. And we even do like target practice because we feel that having or making ethical shots is important because you don't want to shoot a fish and just have it rip off and that one goes off and dies and it's a waste and you shoot another one and that one rips off and dies. So we try to teach these kids, be patient, go to the bottom, be patient, aim, take your shot, have a solid shot, get your gun dialed in, it's very important. And these all lead to ethical spearfishing. And as far as the safety part goes, we teach them how to use the gear for dangerous scenarios. For instance, like you have your dive float, your tagline, and we tell them that you need to dive with an anchor because if the current start ripping, you just throw your anchor out, grab your buoy, and hang on to however long it takes till the current dies out. Or if you have your gun attached to your tagline, no anchor, shoot that shaft into the rock, get it stuck, and hang on to your buoy. Kids didn't know these things. Kids they don't know. They never thought about how bad ocean conditions could be and how dangerous it could be. Like Brian and I, we've been in those scenarios before. I've hung on to my buoy for 2 hours dealing with 7 knot currents. I thought I was going to get swept out to sea and die. So we teach these kids how to do that. And what I did that day was I shot my gun into the reef, and I got it anchored. And thankfully, the barb held those whole 2 hours, so it's scary. And we try to teach these kids about, where the currents would be at this kind of coastline, how to read the moon and the tides, and apply that knowledge to where you're going to dive because that environment could have a lot of different effects with the moon and tides. You got to know if the water's going to go out this way, go out that way, which way the eddy's going to be, which way your bait's going to come from. So we go into lots of detail with our spearfishing seminar. And I'm not going to lie, our spearfishing seminar, a lot of kids can't handle it. It's about 5-6 hours long. Then we finally get in the water, and then we teach them the blackout safety procedures, what to do, and the spear gun safety. Muzzle awareness is a huge thing for this guy because we took kids out and they're pointing his gun at him. He's just like, never taking you again. So you point that thing at me. Just
So
like,
I feel like that's what I'm worried about me because I just hear my dad, smacking me in the back of the head or something like, yeah, it terrifies me. I want to get sued and yeah.
yeah. So,
Well,
but as far as the liability wise, but I mean, I don't know how it is for California. For here, I did a lot of research about that. We have a waiver that they sign that waives us from liability, and I found out as long as we don't charge anything, we don't need insurance.
right.
Oh,
And
cool.
they sign the waiver, they're waiving all liability. It's once we charge a fee or accept a donation
Right.
is where we need insurance. And that insurance is ridiculous over here. I priced it all out. I mean, it's expensive for 1 year, and we only do it maybe like 3 to 4 times a year just because his schedule, my schedule, our families and whatnot. And because we do it for free, I can't dish that kind of money out right now and whatnot. Maybe in the future, when my landscaping business does better, and then I could pay for the insurance and maybe charge a little bit just to pay for our time and pay for expenses. But as of right now, it's not a big deal. We're doing it for free. We love doing it for free. We love donating our time. But yeah, as far as the liability is like here in Hawaii, if you don't charge, there's no liability. There's no insurance purpose.
Well, I think doing it for
Yeah.
free kind of shows stewardship toward the sport. That's the whole grounds behind Longfins is we have many years of accumulated knowledge. And if nobody teaches you the things that we teach in the course, you can run through infinite amounts of trial and error. So we try to save people time and teach them the things that are hard earned knowledge. Experience is not something
The near death experiences.
experience is not
Yeah.
can replace.
Yeah.
You can't watch a video about experience. You have to live it. And then you learn your lessons through cumulative experiences. So with the kids, when we tell them stories in the class, their eyes are huge and their minds are blown, but we're telling them this because this stuff's going to happen to you, especially as you get better and you move out into deeper water, because now your current lines change. The things that you're going to happen upon change. You go deep water, you're going to encounter more sharks, larger prey, deeper reef. All the variables adjust to be more dangerous than just diving in 30 feet or less. Once you're down diving 80 feet and you shoot a fish in a cave, shooting lures in the cave.
Yeah.
And then you spend the next hour taking turns trying to recover the fish and your gear.
It's all part of the adventure. Hey, if God blesses me with an allure, I'm gonna take it. So.
Yeah. That was the one fish I wanted to shoot that I had never shot, and I heard you can smoke them. I didn't hear they were really great eating, but you can smoke them and it's pretty good. But I wanted to get a GT.
Yeah, next time you come, we'll take them to that east side spot.
Yeah.
But it's big lures.
But in all honesty, you look at the trevally family, right? So you have the white, the giant trevallies, and greater than 20 pounds, the texture begins to change, the risk for ciguatera increases, the damage that they're going to do to your gear, of course, and we don't really target those. Personally, yellow spot, papillos, and papillo is basically 10 pounds or under is called papillo. 10 pounds greater is called an ulua. So it's kind of similar to ahi, whereas 60 pounds or less is a koshibi, and above 60 pounds is an ahi. So
yeah, we do that with parrotfish too. In Guam, they do the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're looking for something that's going to provide enough food for your family, be consistent in quality, you don't worry about those 80-pound white uluas, because you're already getting into like a trophy realm at that point, and you kind of say to yourself, well, I'll donate this shaft to land this thing, because 9 times out of 10, that thing's gonna pretzel your shaft unless you turn its lights out instantly, which isn't easy to do. You got to hit about a quarter.
Yeah, I mean, 100-pound lure. You have 100-pound lure. Your target zone is only about that big. That's hard to do from 10 feet.
But
I mean, for me, I'm not the greatest shot, so
and it's a moving target.
It's a moving target. depending on how fast or how weary they are of you or how they approach you. You know, like Donovan, like our friend Donovan got the gun. He gets really lucky. Those things just swim so slow, right next to him. He's just right there. Boom, lights out. I'm just like, why doesn't that ever happen to me? Deal with it for an hour after because it presses my shaft, tangles in the reef. I just want to be blessed with one slow moving lure. You know, just
You've had them.
I had them, but I
Yeah.
still haven't got lucky enough.
The bluefin, you guys like the blue trevally? Those are pretty tasty, I thought. I've had those before. Um, yeah, the first experience I ever saw of I guess an Alua, a giant trevally, was at Anini Beach in
Mm,
that reef pass, and I was there with I was diving down. I was like, there was a pretty good parrot, and I had a little three prong, and this is like 10 years. My son was like 18 months old, more than 10 years ago now, and I had no idea. Like we were talking about, like I mean, I haven't didn't have a whole lot of money when I was younger, so I didn't travel a lot. If I did travel, it was because, you know, a work or something. And I remember I saw this turtle, and this is I still remember, and I didn't even shoot the fish, but this is what I remember. It was so cool. Is I was hiding behind this coral head right at the reef pass, and you got to pay attention, like you guys said too, for everybody. Like that reef pass, man, there's some current moving, so you need to time it right. And I learned that too on that trip. Um, but I was hiding behind this coral head, waiting for this, trying to get this sneak up on this parrot to come closer. And then all of a sudden, I see everybody truck the other way. And I was like, "Oh, what's coming down?" And I'm in my mind, because I'm from California. I was like, "Tyler the Shark, oh God," you know. And I see this turtle come, and I'm like, "Okay." So the turtle, and then all of a sudden, I see these two trevally, and to me, it was so exciting because it's like I've never seen. That's like out of a movie. Like those, I mean, those are like Hawaii tropical fish, you know. And I remember pulling that like 6 foot long. I bought it at Kappa Sporting or whatever it was, the Kappa dive shop down there, and I shot at it with a three prong. Like it didn't even hit the thing. It was like a foot short of it because the good viz. But I mean, now that I know, I was like, thank God I didn't hit that thing. Like, well, first of all, I would have swam off with the thing, but I'll always remember that memory. And when I came back there 10 years later, the first time I was like, I want to go to that reef pass. I want to go to that reef pass. And not even to hunt just that fish, but to see that whole ecosystem, like everything was just so cool, so alive. And like what I think that's what you go to Hawaii to see is those big predators, those big tropical fish doing their thing. That was the coolest thing ever to me. Like when I was, I don't know how old I was, in 20s, you know. Um, but yeah, that was pretty awesome. So for those big Alua though, how do you guys like rig your stuff up when you're like, do you use Dyneema, mono? I imagine mono would just shred.
Um, we don't really target lures, but like I said, if they do pass by it or if it gives me a shot, I'll definitely
Yeah.
take. So, but the guys who do target lures, they're pretty heavy duty rigs, like 516, 8 mil shafts, slip tips, 500, 600 pound cable. But
Oh.
that's like the old school style. Like that's like the Darryl Wong setup, you know. Like
Uh-huh.
Darryl, the Ulua master. Like since I was a kid watching him shoot big Uluas, that was his go-to setup, 55-inch gun. Da, da, da. But now I've been seeing kind of a trend where guys are just hammering them with single barbs and whatnot, and getting really lucky. You know, I mean, I know there's a lot of guys don't really target Uluas, but when they come across them, they just get really lucky. They stone them, or they end up in a fight for their life or something. You know.
It's
Yeah.
it's kind of with the lure, you look for structure.
Hmm.
So if you find what looks like a house, and that usually a house basically has a couple different entrances. It might have a sunroof to it, but it's like a cave with at least two entrances and exits. And when you're hunting and you check that structure, you don't want to just dive down into the middle because you'll spook it. So on the first drop, and we're going to say, okay, do you want to check it or you want me to check it? Because whoever checks it, you have the potential of getting first shot off, right?
Right.
So said earlier, like if I don't really like Ulua, then I'm gonna say, well, why don't you take the first drop? Because I already shot plenty of those, and I don't really want one, because that's going to be your opportunity. So you kind of approach the house from the side, and you kind of peer in there, and you see what's going on. Because you might go in there, and there might be a couple of them just swimming around in a circle. And if you get a chance and you get the timing down, you can take a shot. And if you didn't want the fish, you come back up and you tell your buddy, hey, there's a house full of omilus or aluas down there. You want one? And if he says, yeah, then he'll go give it a try. But if not, you just move on.
As far as gear and the rigging too, like I just had this guy, this kid, he was messaging me the other day. This guy is hilarious. Anyway, he shot this ulu, busted the barb off, pressed on the shaft, 8 mil shaft, thick shaft, and he texts me, or he messages me, he's like, how do you Kauai guys land ulua? Do you guys use the pubic hairs of the many hoonies and wave them together, weave them together? Just like, what? Just dying laughing. But anyway, it's like, no, well, we switched over from mono because we don't use mono because it snaps and just shapes too easily. So I'm starting to use Dyneema now, and I noticed it's a lot stronger. It's 600-pound test with a diameter of less than 200-pound mono. So we're starting to move on to those things. He's like, oh, okay, right on. And he's like, well, how do you prevent the barb from snapping off? Do you have a solution to that? I was like, actually, I do. Then I showed him a picture of Dean Kutrowski's shaft where he welds all the bar pins and whatnot. He was like, no way, I'm ordering 5 shafts right now. I was like, whoa!
Ooh, that's expensive.
He's ordered $500 worth of shaft. Like, I told him, dude, just order one threaded shaft and use a slip tip. You save yourself some money and whatnot. In case if you bust a slip tip, you can just get another one. But to order 500 at once. But anyway, it was just hilarious. He's just like, oh, okay. Then he ordered himself all his Dyneema lines. He's like, can't wait, I'm pumped. He kept sending me pictures of it. It's like, and he made this Wolverine meme where Wolverine was holding his picture, and there's a picture of an Ulua that got away. It was just, this guy's classic.
But you know what? Like that's why that's when he might target an Alua and mean the world to him and be like, okay, I got one, I'm good, and move on. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I have fish like that too. Like dude, I'm like a little kid with this stuff still.
Read about social media and having, you can call it a company or whatever with Longfins, is once you kind of not so much establish the brand, but you establish their reputation. So we've kind of built ourselves a reputation of promoting safety, being ethical, being conservative with things. And kids will reach out and say, hey, uncle, this situation, what could I have done to have a better outcome? Or what would you recommend? And that's something that wasn't available prior to social media. I mean, the biggest thing that I've noticed when I was growing up, you pretty much hung out with your peers. And nowadays, I mean, half of my dive partners could be my kids. They're less than half my age. These 15, 14-year-old kids have no problem calling you up, sending you a message. Hey, uncle, what do I do? When we were growing up, that was unheard of. I would never call a guy 20 years older than me and just expect him to spend some time educating me. So I've noticed that a lot with social media. It really opens the door for the sharing of information.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the half your age thing because last time we were in Baja, one of the guys asked if one of the guys I was with was my son, and it was pretty funny because he happened to be Asian. So I was like, I don't know how that's gonna work out, but like, but no, all of like I think about it now is like most of my friends literally are in their early 20s, and they're like just as pumped on the thing as I am, but and they look up to us. I mean, we're in our 40s or whatever, but like they look up to us, and I I I don't really. I just look at them as my equal. You know what I mean? Like I guess because we're all just diving, and then I take a step back and I'm like, wow, these kids could be my kid. I'm like, oh, that's kind of creepy, like an old guy hanging around a bunch of kids, but like it keeps me young. These kids are hungry, man. Like to dive all the time, and it's like they're really, like you said, they're hungry for knowledge.
Yeah.
And
that is the biggest component that you can pass in the way of gaining knowledge. Because if someone asks you, how do you do what you do? How can I dive deeper? You're not going to get that by diving with your peers, that everybody's just footloose and fancy free, shooting everything they can. Nobody understands hunting tactics. Nobody understands behavior. Nobody understands safety. It's just like, oh yeah, you got that fish.
Yeah.
and unless you go with people that are more experienced than you, people that are better than you're never going to get better. You're going to stay at that explorative, hungry for experience level, and that's the biggest jump. I mean, that's what, like, some of the dive partners that I have, as you said earlier, I'm not the greatest Spiro, but my focus is being the best partner. Like, I always have your back. You do a drop, I didn't see a fish and swim in the other direction. I stayed with you. If you were on a deep drop, I already know this is the first thing I do when I dive with somebody new. I ask them, I go, what's your comfortable depth and what's your average bottom time? And then if he tells me, oh, I'm comfortable diving to 80 feet, I can do a 2-minute dive on the regular. When I watch him, when he drops, he gets to 130, I'm already breathing up. I'm ready to meet him halfway. He didn't have to tell me anything because I know what his capacity is. And I do that with everybody I dive with.
That's why I like diving in, because I don't have to worry. I can take those deep drops, and I know he's going to be there. And what's great about that is having a solid partner is everything. And then when he takes a job, he can count on me to be there, definitely.
Right, because having that confidence in your partner allows you to improve. It allows you to push yourself, push your threshold. Maybe you're hunting for a moo that was a super challenging fish. And let's say you're 65 feet down and you're under a ledge of reef and you're trying to bring this fish in. If you were by yourself, you would abort really early. If you had a partner you didn't trust, you would abort really early. But if your partner's down there and he's watching you like a hawk, you can say, you know what? I'm a little ways into my breath hold, but I can do 30 seconds more because I know that guy's got me. And he's either going to come down for me, or if I shoot this fish, he's going to take my gun from me so I can get to the surface. And having that allows you to progress so much quicker than anything else. Solid partners.
Like when I was one of my younger years of diving, and I never passed that threshold, like how Brian was saying, to get better until I met Rayton. Rayton was the one, Rayton Ciliato. He was the one that was telling me, oh, I heard you've been diving, you dive pretty good, da 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 da. It's like, oh, let's go dive together. Like, you know what? Sure, let's go. And then I dove with Rayton, like, oh, he's a really good diver. I've learned a lot from him. He taught me a lot too. And so I kept diving with Rayton, and I got pretty good. I'm not trying to be bragging or conceited, but I got way better than what I was. Like what Brian was saying, you don't broaden your horizons until you start moving up, diving with better people, diving with better partners, and then you start pushing your limits because you're comfortable, you know your partner's there. And that's what we try to teach these kids, it's like, you guys want to be, because all these kids want to be hammer divers. Hammer divers, no problem, but how hammer is your partner? How solid is your partner? Do you know your limits? Oh, no. I was like, well, that's why you came to the class, because we're going to teach you what your limits are.
And that's also another component to the safety course, is before we just had one person show. And then they would try to go dive with their other partners and tell them what they learned. But they're like, why should I listen to you? You're my same age. You're at my same level, So now we try to encourage, if you're going to come to the class, you got to bring all your dive partners with you. So everybody's got the training. Everybody's on the same page. It's not just a 14-year-old kid telling a 14-year-old kid what to do. You all learn from experienced people. And the other end of the spectrum of what I was describing as a good partner, you can't dive with ego. So like our friend Ed Royce, what he does is he'll tell you, he goes, are you comfortable diving to 100 feet? Do you have a 2.5-minute breath hold? Don't tell me that you can if you can't, because I'm going to be down there 100 feet for 2 minutes, and I'm going to expect you to come get me if I have a problem. So you gotta be honest, and you gotta tailor. So if I dive with a novice and I ask them and they tell me, oh, I can dive 30 feet max, 45 seconds. We're not diving deeper than 30 feet that day, even if I can dive 200, because it doesn't, because as soon as I go below 30 feet, you're of no use to me as a spotter, as a safety, because you can't come get me. So you have to tailor the day's dive based on the abilities of each other. And you got to live within that realm.
And another thing to that is that I've found that my friend and I, for some reason, I don't know if it's COVID and wearing masks, if our CO2 tolerance is through the roof or what, but like all of our dives have been pushing a little bit longer. I swear, longer and longer and longer. And we were just feeling really good the other day. But it's just exactly what you said. We know that we dive 145 or 130. That's our normal dive. And here with the lack of viz, when I go down, I just disappear. And but we were diving. If we're going to be pushing time, we'll shallow on the depth side of things, and we'll just be pushing time, or vice versa. But it makes it a lot easier to relax in your whole dive and the whole process, knowing that your buddy is right next to you, or has got your back the whole time. Because we've all had those moments where we dove with a guy and then we're on the way up and it was like a 75-foot drop, which is kind of deep for me coming up, and I'm looking around and he's chasing a wahoo on the surface, and I'm like, dude, like that's not like I could die, like, and anybody, and then on your next dive, you're worried, you're trying to relax, but you're like, I don't know, is this guy gonna watch me? And your heart rate goes up, and yeah, we had an issue. Go ahead.
That's the best way to filter your partners, right? So you say, oh, you want to come diving? Okay, let's have this pre-dive discussion. Let's formulate a dive plan. This is the plan. This is what we're targeting. This is the depth we're going to be in. This is the times we're going to be diving. If I'm down at 60 feet trying to bring a fish in and I look up at you and you're not looking at me, I'm just coming up. I'm aborting the dive because you're not watching me. And we're going to have a discussion when I get to the surface. And if you can't start watching me the way I expect you to, we're not diving again. No matter how bad you want to, because you failed as a partner. And that's a great way to filter people.
I have this really good story about this guy I used to dive with. His name was, I don't know if you heard of him. He used to dive in California a lot. Older guy. His name is Johnny Wannick. You ever heard of him?
No.
So Johnny Wannick is an older guy, Navy guy, 6'2", 6'3". He was, at that time, he was about maybe 59, 60 years old, but just solid. Run 10 miles every day, just solid. Great diver, taught me a lot. And he called me one day, oh, let's go dive tomorrow. Da, 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 da. I was like, oh, I can't, I got to work. He said, okay. So he found a partner and they went kayaking to this place called Big Flats. And so they went out to Big Flats, and he said he shot what could have been a world record Amilu, because this guy's been all over the world spearfishing. He's like, he told me, I shot this Amilu, 25, 30 pounds. I hanged it off my kayak, and I kept diving, and my partner was by his kayak, and we're kind of drifting. He said he turns around while he's on the bottom. He turns around, looks up at his kayak. He sees this tiger shark come right up, full charge. Boom! Whack his kayak, throws his kayak up in the air, flips it, grabs his Amilu, eats it. His partner saw the whole thing go down, jumps on his kayak, and leaves him there. Okay? So he's over there trying to put his kayak back together, trying to get his gear together. This tiger shark's just flipping out, surrounding him, acting aggressive. And his partner is just gone, and he's like, where are you going? Come back! The guy's like, fuck no! And John gets up, finally gets on his kayak, starts paddling in, and then he catches up with him. He's like, you're an effing asshole, you just left me out there, just going off. And like we said, having a good, solid partner, it's not going to do that kind of stuff, and you got to filter them out. And that's like when John and I was diving a lot together at that time, and he was really thankful that how solid of a partner I was for him, because I wouldn't have bailed. I just been like, oh crap, I would have helped him, I would have like stand guard and whatnot. Anyway.
Yeah, it's on. Like, yeah, I don't care. I mean, here's the thing from animal training, when I was training dolphins and sea lions get gnarly too, is that, you're either predator or prey, number one, and is it worth it to the animal? So you better stand and fight, and if you want to stay alive, because that's your option. I don't have a lot of experience with tiger sharks. I've seen like one big tiger that was like, wow, the whole seafloor is moving. That was a big tiger. But I have a lot of experience with smaller, more like kind of crazy, like reef sharks, gravy sharks, silky sharks, or silver tip sharks, and just animals in general, right? Yeah, you're gonna have to draw a line in the sand. And my thing is like, if you're getting, yeah. And number one, why would you leave your buddy? Like, Like,
That's the thing is like, okay, you guys are partners. When it comes to a situation like that where it's almost life and death, you have to be together, strength in
right.
numbers. And that's what his partner that day didn't understand. Strength in numbers, safety in numbers. And it's just crazy. So, and then like I got into a situation at Neha with my buddy Tommy where we were getting chased around by this huge tiger shark. And like it would go into the murk, it would come back out in a different direction, jaws open, everything. We're like, oh, we're poking at it and whatnot, and it'll disappear in the murk again. It'll come up underneath us. We're like, holy crap! And we just had to stand our ground, and that thing chased us around for like 40 minutes, dude. And the boatman was nowhere to be found. And when the boatman finally came, I was pissed. I was snapping at the captain. I was ready to punch his lights out. I was just and Neha back in those days was like Jurassic Park. You couldn't leave divers in the water alone. You have to like kind of drift with them in the boat. It was just gnarly. But my partner at that time, Tommy, he's a solid guy. We just went back to back and we just stood our ground. But it was scary as hell. If it wasn't for him, I actually would have got bit because I didn't even see the thing coming. We were just sitting side by side, and he cussed me off. He's like, "Woo, woo!" I look like, "Oh!" And the thing's right there, jaws open. I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, it was wicked. It was wild, and it was like if it wasn't for Tommy, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Honestly, it
Sure.
was crazy.
The funny thing, I think we all have stories like that. That infamous, "Hmm, hmm." I'm
Uh,
like, oh boy.
Partner though, the partner is having a solid partner is key to all. I think to many aspects of spearfishing. You don't have that solid partner, you're not gonna land your trophy fish. You're not gonna come back home alive. You're not gonna have your successful adventures. I think having a partner is solid partner is priceless, man. It is. I can't express enough about it. Yeah.
I think another important component when dealing with sharks, obviously your partner needs to be there to support you, but at the same time, one of the biggest flaws that happens in inexperience is the shark doesn't care about you. The shark wants your fish that you just shot because it's an easy meal. And if you're in the habit of panicking, letting the shark have the food, all you're doing is training the shark to associate a diver means a free meal. And then out here, because that happens so frequently, they're trained, they hear the trigger
Yep.
and they will come out of the reef and you didn't even know they're there and they'll start getting all frisky. And if you don't get your catch up and your buddy protect your catch, that shark's taxing it. And then they're going to follow you for the rest of the dive. And your dive's over because anything you shoot, he's going to immediately go for it. So that's why it's paramount. If you shoot a fish, you have to protect that fish. You got to keep it on you. You got to fight for it. And it's more than just like, well, it's my fish. It's you don't want to train that shark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lasting effect. I know in places, same thing. As soon as they hear those bands snap, they start showing up. Um, Also, especially in areas like, and they learn quick. They learn real quick. And like you said, that's the good buddy thing where we've done it before where my buddy did a big drop, shot a fish at depth, a nice rainbow, and then I will be diving down on it. And as soon as I'll just kind of grab that thing as best as I can, or at least get in the area and kind of like puff up and state my kind of like, this is mine. And a lot of the smaller reef sharks, if you can kind of like an alpha male, if you can calm them down, let them know like, hey, what I've found, and every area is different too. I've also found that, but like they kind of stay like, okay, okay, okay. But once you get them fired up, it's game over. You got to get out. You either get out of the water, or and the next time you dive that spot, they'll be like, hey, what's up, free meal.
And at minimum, if they get fired up, you got to at least move spots. And if you don't
Right.
have a boat, you just got to forget about that spot and kick away till you don't see them anymore. Or you may have to abort the dive for the day. I was just with a couple kids the other day, right in the backyard, and one kid shot a knife jaw, had it on the float. This tiger shark shows up. He also had his flasher rig on his float. The tiger shark tax the float. And it was funny because I was out there by myself just with a 3-prong, and I met up with these kids just in time for the shark to attack their float. And you could see the thrashing at the float, and I'm just laughing. I'm like, your fish is getting taxed. And then after he was done, come to find out the flasher rig, the tiger ate the flasher rig and tried to get the knife jaw, but the knife jaw has these sharp spines. He was probably not too happy about chomping on these sharp spines because that's not a fish that normally would get preyed upon because of that. So he loses his flasher rig. The fish is still there, only has a couple teeth marks in it. But, I'm observing the kids because I want to see what they do. Did you abort the fish? Did you try to go over and discourage him from taxing your float? What did you do? And then after that incident, I asked them, I go, so what are you guys going to do now? Are you going to stay in the water and keep diving? Or are you going to call it and go in just to see what they would say? So we ended up going in because once you got a fish that has the taste for blood, they're going to follow you. And especially if it's murky, like where you guys live, you don't know where they are. You have no idea where they are.
Yeah, and like what you were kind of saying before, Alan, is like all sharks, they stay on the edge of the visibility, they disappear, and then they come back, and they disappear, and they come back, and like here, I kind of have a rule because it's not worth my life. If it does get too bad, or depending on where I'm diving, if it's a sharky area, we pretty much have great whites and we have 7 gills. But I mean, I don't want to see a great white in the water, and if I do, it's probably a bad day. If it's good viz, oftentimes the shark will come in, and I've noticed from a bunch of friends, they come in, check you out, and leave. You're not whatever it is. But if it's bad viz, he's coming 25 miles an hour, this 14-foot, 1-ton animal. He's not going to put the brakes on. And if he takes a bite and decides he doesn't want you, you're still missing your leg or something, just like a big tiger, So we try to avoid it as best as we can and not put ourselves in that situation. I mean, I do. But again, if there's elephant seals around and all that stuff and it's good viz, I'll still dive. But in bad viz, I just pick and choose my spots, be smart about it.
I was recently talking to Parviz Bustani, who owns Red Triangle up in Northern Cal. And those guys are using shark shields all day, every day. Because as you said, with the great whites, having a buddy, being aware of their presence, they don't care about you. They're not going to come and do that look and see. They're just going to come from the bottom and breach at 25 miles an hour with their mouth open. Mm-hmm. And unless you can somehow get out of the way, like a rough bull at a bullfight, you're done. So that's why they wear those shark shields, because you can't see the threat coming till it's too late.
And that's the thing with Tommy that day at Nihao. It's just that thing was coming from the bottom, dirty water. I didn't see it. Jaws open, coming straight up at me. And that tiger shark was at least 14, 15 feet, The eyeball was like that big.
Dude.
Flash of death, just like, it's, like you said, they're going to mistaken you in dirty water for something else. And that particular area where I was that day, we were outside Leahi Bay. And Leahi Bay is this little sand cove on the shoreline where seals are known to rest. And because I remember I was wearing an all black wetsuit, here I am swimming across that bay, looking like a seal, and that tiger shark would just so happen to be waiting in the water for those seals to come back in. I come swimming along, and he thought I was a seal, and he wanted to eat us, bro. It was crazy. But anyway, yeah.
No, the thing with the sharks too, I mean, you look at their prey, right? Those prey can do some serious damage. So if they're coming to attack, they have got 100% commitment. They've got to go, or they risk getting injured. So like, I actually passed by Red Triangle last week, and I was going to stop by, but it was 9 in the morning and they didn't open up till 10. But I can't say, if I lived up there, that place scares the shit out of me. Like that, dude, that area up there is like, I mean, that's bring an iron cage. And I dive, when you guys always comment like, oh, it looks sharky, I'm like, yeah, it ain't that sharky compared to like up there. Yeah, those guys, hats off to those guys. I mean,
Yeah,
they love it.
I give them credit. That's crazy. I wouldn't even
Shoosh.
die if I lived there.
No, I'd be, yeah, dude, yeah, that
That's
it,
yeah. There's no.
bro. So what's we're kind of running out of time here, but what's next for you guys? Like, where do you see um like Longfins going, and what is your goal? I guess you know what is your goal for this year, like for Longfins?
Well, we're gonna keep on the same track, promoting the dive safety and whatnot. We're gonna do more classes as soon as this kind of COVID thing settles down, and then we get our kids back in school, get that settled with, get our work schedules back on track. We're definitely gonna continue with that. I don't think we're ever gonna stop with that. Um, I am hoping for me in the next 3 years, hopefully, can have a physical dive shop here somewhere down in Kuloa, Poipu. That's my dream. That's my retirement plan. I want to retire as soon as I can. I mean, I don't mind working every day. I don't mind going to a dive shop every day for the rest of my life. I'm cool with that. I mean, doing what I do now, working in a dive shop is a dream come true. So that's where we kind of see it as, and maybe Brian can work part time at a dive shop, or we'll be closing on weekends because we're diving or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, as far as right now, we're just trying to survive 2020, get 2020 over with, keep going with the spearfishing seminars. I've been getting a lot of messages and phone calls from kids that are really excited to attend. I got a couple of messages today from their parents that would like the kids to attend because now the parents are feeling more secure that their kid has some safety knowledge and they're more comfortable with letting their kids go out on their own and spearfishing. So we're definitely gonna work. We're always gonna try and evolve and do the class better. Brian and I are gonna always try to add more things to the class and whatnot. I'm thinking about trying and taking a level 2 freediving course just to see what else I can learn and teaching that to the kids for free as well. Um, but I'm getting the vibe that nobody wants to teach me because I'm giving this information away for free. And a lot of these instructors are like, that's how they make their bread and butter. And I don't blame them, but to me, knowledge should be free, especially when it has to deal with the life or death or saving someone's life. It should always be free, and I don't feel comfortable with capitalizing on that. Like Tim from High Performance Freediving, he's been great since the death of Noihao and Oahu. He's been doing a lot of online safety seminars, and a lot of people have been attending and signing up. So he's getting great hits on that. He's actually contributing a lot back to the dive community for safety wise. I know I was kind of a prick about it when Noel passed away. I was kind of calling out all the dive instructors, like, "Why aren't you guys doing this for free? You guys should be teaching the safety line for free." And they're all kind of like, "Whoa," they're kind of like, "Well, it's a lot of our time and da da da. We need to charge." It's like, why? I don't give up a lot of my time to do the seminar, and I do it for free. But Tim was really cool at High Performance Freediving. He's no questions asked. He messaged me, "I'm gonna do a free safety seminar online." I was like, "Dude, you are the man. Thank you." So he's got a lot of great what you call hits from that, and yeah. So I've been trying to get some other guys to do it too, but they haven't been as nice about it. But I was kind of a dick about it, but I'm a very unstable emotional person. So just like
You're
I'm very
passionate.
about things when it comes to kids and dying for something that could have been prevented. I get pissed. I get emotional. I get angry. I don't see any need for any kid to die. The resources are out there. You just got to go and get it. I tell kids here, if you have a chance and have the money to take a free diving course, do it. If not, message me. I'll make time for you. I'll teach you everything I know, and I'll do it for free. I don't want to see any more deaths. Like growing up when I was younger, I had, I think, four of my friends, spearfishing buddies, died for shallow water blackout. And back then, there was no internet, no social media back then. There was no free diving classes. Information and resources were extremely limited. Extremely limited. If we had what we had now back then, my buddies probably would still been alive. They still would have been alive. And I don't want to see any more kids get into trouble or dying and stuff like that. We all have kids. We all have families. I have a huge soft spot in my heart for kids. So that's why we do this,
And I think for me personally, like Al kind of said his future agenda, the dive shop, teaching greater things. One of the things I would like to do is once we kind of get the kids with a baseline knowledge of safety, I would then like to, and there's a liability component to it, but I would actually like to take a group of intermediate to more experienced people out and focus on the more dangerous variables of diving, like in and egress from like a surf zone or off a reef. Okay, how do you kick out through a surf line? How do you get in through a screaming current channel? What do you do if you shoot a fish 60 feet down? We had a great example of this, which I'll get back to the last time we went out on teamwork and dealing with a deep, tangled up situation. But, understanding those variables, understanding like you get stuck in a current, you don't panic. I had an incident with that where a friend and I were knee-high on South Point, and the waves and the wind came up and the boat couldn't see us and the current was ripping us out and we could have easily drowned. And I told my partner, I said, you know what? Don't panic. We're going to keep bottom as long as we can see the bottom, and we pace ourselves working against this. Eventually the tide's going to change, the current's going to shift, and we're going to be able to get back in. But once we lose bottom, we don't know how we are. We don't know where we are. So just that knowledge, and it took the boat an hour and a half. So we were kicking for an hour and a half straight, just keeping bottom. We got rescued, And there's so many life experience situations like that. So I'll go back to the last one. So it was about 55 feet deep. We both saw a nice umilu. So Al went down. It was kind of like a little ledge situation. And the fish came up along the ledge, and he met the fish and he shot it. So the fish got tangled up under there. When I was up there, I seen another umilu come out the back. So right away, I'm thinking, did it rip off? Did it run out the back? So when he came up, he said,
excuse me.
He said, no, it's on there. And usually when he does this stuff, I tell him, okay, you go get it. I'll safety you. Because that's your dumb shot that you took,
I almost find it like that much.
So he went down one time, and it was only like 3 feet high from the ocean floor to the top of the roof of this shelf. And he told me, he says, we're going to have to take turns on this one. So, so here's the risk that I assessed. I already had a fish on my belt. So the first thing I said is, okay, take this fish off my belt, because that's added drag, and there was a shark darting in and out of that. I don't want to be down there trying to thing, and this thing tries to tax it off my belt. So get rid of the drag. Clip the gun on the float. We don't need a gun anymore. And then I asked him, tell me what to expect down there. So I already had it in my mind, and what had happened is a big coral head that weighed about 50 pounds had broken off the roof of this and was sitting on the line. So that was my mission, to get that off the line. So on his turn, he could do the next step in retrieving the fish. So, I was telling him in the water, this is like the hardest dives, when you got to get down a certain depth and you're going to have to put work in. It's not like a blind drop where you just go down and dust and wait. You got to exert yourself. So you're kicking against current, you're trying to get your heart rate down, you're breathing up. So it took about 5 minutes, and then I dropped down there and I knew what to expect. And I took a snapshot in my mind. I focused on getting that coral head. I got it off the line. And then when I came up, I told him, I said, okay, it's free. Now this is what the picture looks like. The shaft is wedged. It looks like it's tied around a coral head. I told him, I said, go ahead and get your knife out, because you may want to just cut everything, grab the fish, and come back up, because the shaft is wasted. So he knew what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
He went down for that drop. He was able to pull everything out and come back up safely. But it's that level of teamwork where we're at that I would like to expose other people to, because that's a perfect situation that can happen regularly. And if you don't know how to deal with it, and you don't consider those simple variables like, take this fish off my belt, it's added drag, clip my gun to the belt, I don't need it, tell me what to expect when I get down there, I'm going to do one phase of what's going to need to happen for this recovery. We could have easily drowned, got tangled up, endangered ourselves.
Yeah, overexcitement is definitely a big factor in accidents. You know, getting too excited, kind of almost like, okay, gotta do this, gotta do that. Oh, it's like this. It's like, but calm down. Just think about this for a second. Let's relax. I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna go take a look. Okay. You know, if you're in a situation, you know, fishing under a pin, whatever, you got time. You can relax. You can breathe up. You can go down there. You can look first, assess what's going on. Okay. Come back up. Tell your partner. Then your partner can go down. Do everything, and then he goes back up, and you go back down, and you finish it just like what we did. You know, and for kids, they get really excited. You know what I mean? They shoot a big,
Oh
thing,
yeah.
so stoked, and that's when it becomes dangerous, you know. And one of the main things we teach in the class too: don't panic, relax, take your time, figure it out, think. Because I tell them, once you panic, you're dead, you're done. You know,
There's
that's
a you brought up a good point too, though, when you said do one thing, right? Like, as I've had to talk myself out of this, where shoot the fish, it goes in here, and I'm like trying to do this. I'm just trying to take care of everything at once. Where we live, we don't have to really worry about too many sharks. Just come up, take a breath. Okay, what am I gonna do on the next dive? Or I tell my buddy like, hey, it's right there, and same thing. I tell him the whole situation. If the shaft is wedged, whatever, and uh, and you're just getting one piece of the puzzle, and then you can just keep doing that. But where it gets dangerous is when you try to like just bite off more than you can chew on one dive, and you're exerting yourself, like you said, and then that will just crush you that last 30 feet when you're coming up.
I think one of the worst ways that happens is when the line is wrapped. So you go down, you untangle a section, you're like, okay, I'm coming up. And then you look and you go, oh, but it's stuck on that other coral head. And instead of just coming up and letting the next diver do it, you're like, I'm just going to try to get that one too. And that's when whenever you're on the way back up and then you recommit to going back down, that's always a bad idea because you were going up for a reason.
Yeah,
yeah,
my friend Matt blacked out that way, diving oil rigs, saw shot a sheep's head, was like, oh, I'm gonna just go back down while I'm here and fix it. And he came up, shallow water, blacked out, and it was right there. I also did the same thing, and I overstayed by about 10 seconds, and that last like, and I ended up getting a trachea squeeze because I started rushing because I knew, and I was like, oh, I gotta get out of here, I gotta get out of here. And it started like chicken necking, and this was years ago, and ended up, yeah, getting a trachea squeeze, and it was like, oh, because my shaft got stuck, and I was like, rather than go up, breathe up, come back down, I'm just here, I might as well take care of it now. And then you get there, and it's not quite as easy as you thought, and you end up pushing it. And you know, when you're a competitive person too, you kind of push yourself, and unfortunately, that will kill you in this activity. You know.
So that example, leads you on to a lesson. So what could you have done to ensure your safety? You could have stripped your weight belt, because then you're gonna fly up. You don't ever start pounding and the kicking to get up quicker because you're using up your air. You're better off just ditching the weight belt, get a nice constant cadence of your fins, and letting that momentum. You can stop kicking 30 feet from the surface and just focus on relaxing. And you're way better off conserving the air than you are scrambling to the surface.
that's why when you're
Right.
scrambling to the surface, that person is panicking. He's gonna get in trouble. That's when you're panicking, and you're just like, ooh, okay, this is not gonna end well. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a buddy. I heard a story. I was something similar where you just take your weight belt off and hold it in your hand if you think that's even a possibility. So if you do black out, weight belt drops and you just come up.
Yeah.
That's another good little tip.
With that being said, one of the things I like to do is I'll clip my tagline to my belt. So it takes the consideration of ditching the belt out of the equation altogether because I'll ditch the belt and it's still attached to my float and tagline. I can get up safely, recover, pull that thing up from the surface. I still have it. I'll even clip my gun to my belt and ditch the belt and the gun, and it's hooked to the tagline. Because everybody's got that. I don't want to lose the fish. I don't want to lose my gear. Screw the gear. gear is replaceable, but that's the seed that's in your mind that causes that blackout because of salvaging the gear, scrambling as fast as you can. Just ditch the gear.
We even
Right.
teach, it's like, as far as weight placement on your belt makes a difference. So we
Mm-hmm.
all my weight on my back, right back here. And the reason for that is if I come up and I black out and I go face first, the motion of the ocean is gonna flip me over and I'm gonna face up and hopefully a splash of water is gonna wake me up. It gives you almost a second chance. And that's like we see a lot of kids got weights all around them. We're like dangerous because if they come up face first, they're staying face first. So,
Right.
so that's why we encourage them to put all their weight in the back.
I also like to weight myself pretty light, depending on where I'm diving. If I know I'm diving deep, I'll just weight myself really light that first 30 feet so that I'm still positive, even if I stop kicking, where typically you're going to black out, I can still get to the surface,
Yeah, always underweighting. And the other thing to consider that people often don't is out here in Hawaii, we use what's called a belt buoy. So it's a stringer that you have on your dive belt. And the more success you have as you go along, you have accumulated weight added to the belt. So if you start out with 6 pounds and now you got 20 pounds of fish on your belt, that's a limiting factor to you coming back up. That gets you tired, that burns up your air. So you're better off taking those fish off when your belt gets heavy and putting them on a different stringer on your float. So just real simple, what should seem like common sense, but it's not so common. Unweight yourself.
Right.
Less weight on your belt. Don't accumulate weight on your belt throughout the dive.
Yeah. And Derek Laval had an interesting thing on his Facebook page, Deeper Perspectives, about weights and wetsuits and weights. He bundled up his wetsuit and he added weight to see how much weight it would take just to sink his wetsuit. Then he took into consideration his body fat, body mass, and all that, and he adjusted his weight accordingly to that. And so it was something different. So instead of experimenting, like swimming out, trying this weight, okay, it's too heavy, coming back to shore, taking the weight off, and going back out, you can get your wetsuit, put it in a bag, put in like 3 pounds, put it in the water. If it sinks, it takes only 3 pounds to sink that wetsuit. And then now you got to take in consideration your body physique. Do you have a lot of body fat, or are you all muscle? Your bone density and whatnot. Then you can have maybe just 2 more pounds if you're really skinny, and then you go out and you be weighted perfectly.
And
stuff like that.
What was kind of interesting in that video is when he was just weighting the suit, it actually took 10 pounds just to, but that's just the buoyancy of the suit. So, out here we mostly dive with 3 mils. But if it's wintertime or we're going to do blue water, we might wear a 5. The guys in NorCal, they're wearing 7s all the time. As the thickness of the suit changes, the buoyancy factor changes. The difference in buoyancy between a brand new suit versus a year-old suit due to compression. The weight is something that has to constantly be adjusted. You can't just say, I'm a 6-pound diver across the board. If you're using a 3 mil suit that's compressed, you might switch to a 4-pound weight belt. And if you're wearing a brand new 5, you might go up to an 8-pound weight belt. So those slip weights are kind of good for that.
Right.
Weight belt setup, you can say, okay, I got a thicker suit today, I'm going to put an extra 2 pounds on. And if you find yourself having a hard time come up, you just take that weight off. So, these are all kind of roll back into the things we teach in the class. I think a lot of divers know these things, but they don't really comprehend them in the moment. They're just thinking, okay, at one point I weighted myself properly. At one point I rigged myself properly. But there's ongoing maintenance. Your bands lose strength. Your monofilament line gets chewed up from the reef. Your suit compresses. Your fins wear out. The propulsion isn't what it used to be when they were new. You might be with a larger gun that creates more drag. These are all variables that have to be considered.
I notice a lot too with the kids. A lot of their dads or their uncles teach them how to dive. And no offense, but they teach them wrong. far as weighting themselves, which is very dangerous. Oh, I swear to God, my dad taught me this too. Same thing. And I noticed like 90% of the kids, their dads or their uncles will say, you weight yourself heavy enough so you just sink and then you just kick on the way up. But it's the opposite. You want to kick on the way down and then come up without any kicking, you know? And so these kids will come to class and they got like 13, 14 pounds on them. I was just like, dude, that's a lot of weight, you know?
They can't even stay afloat treading water.
Yeah, and so I tell him, how heavy you weigh? He's like, oh, like 210 pounds. Like, okay, I used to weigh just as much as you, and I only use 7. I was like, oh, for real? I was like, yeah, dude, 13
Yeah.
pounds is too much, you know? And they're like, oh, how come? Then we'd have to explain to them. So now I start the class with, who taught you guys how to dive? And they're like, oh, my God, oh, God. But okay, whatever he taught you, forget about it. Forget about it. No offense, but forget about it. We're gonna teach you how to properly weight yourself and da 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 da. I grew up just like you guys. My dad taught me how to do it this way, and it was wrong. And I'm glad to be still alive because he taught me the wrong way, you know.
Yeah.
So a lot of kids are like, "What? No, not my. You're saying my dad's wrong, you know?" I'm just like, no, just they teaching you something totally different, and it is wrong, but you know it's dangerous and it's yeah. So that's one of the variables too. Like who taught them?
Well, and the other thing is too, if you're trying to do a breathe up and you're heavy, it is so hard to do a good breathe up where you're relaxing because you're constantly kicking your legs trying to stay afloat. Um, yeah, I've heard that too, and I've actually seen that too, where guys are like, "Oh, I want to just get down there," and I'm like, "That's the totally opposite."
Well,
And when you're having to kick and cover a distance, you're kicking so much more weight, and you're trying to stay afloat. It's exhausting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you're not smooth on the surface. You're kicking like this, trying to keep up and move at the same time. And yeah, you're exhausted. You're
yeah.
done for.
To me, there's really only one exception to overweighting, and that's if you're purposely diving shallow and you need the weight because if you're too buoyant, you're going to exert all your oxygen trying to hold yourself to the bottom. But at the same time, you have to be able to easily come up. And if you put a belt on your fish, you got to get that off your belt because you're going to make it to the point where you can't get up
Yep.
on your own power.
Or
yeah,
you tell them too. You know, if you're gonna dive shallow and you don't want to adjust your weight, dive without pants. Dive without the wetsuit pants. Get rid of some of that buoyancy from the wetsuit. That might help a little bit if you don't want to have to take off weights and readjust and whatnot.
I just noticed it in the surf zone too. When I my old job, when we were doing diving real shallow, if you're not weighted heavy, you're just getting thrown around everywhere. You
Yeah,
know.
Yeah,
So
I know the feeling.
you're a part of the surge.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of those things, I guess, going back to what you're talking, I'll wrap it up. But a lot of those things that the other side of it is sometimes we know it all. Well, we know those things, but we take it for granted because we've been doing it for so long, and I don't even think about it. And so I don't tell the details because I'm not thinking about it because it just comes second nature. And I don't say everything to my son like, oh yeah, until it's after the fact and he's like almost drowned. And kind of like what you were saying too, Brian, where you're talking about coming in the surf zone and coming into passes and understanding currents. And I was fortunate to learn that through surfing, where you're paddling and you're going out, and you kind of learn how to like get in and out through certain areas and how that, how the currents change depending on the topography and things like that. But not everybody does that. Like some of the people here, the first time they've seen the ocean, the first time they've been in the ocean is when they're diving. And that's like crazy to me, but that's true for a lot. It's the reality of a lot of people that come here to go to school or whatever, and they just don't have any idea. So
Well, on that, what I've noticed is when people come here, vacation, move here, whatever, they're under the impression that they're a strong swimmer because maybe they do 50 laps at the YMCA pool every day.
Mm-hmm.
Swimming in a pool is nothing compared to being in the ocean, being in the current. And, I actually had a recent dive with this guy I probably got 15 years on in age. And we were coming in a channel and I had 60 pounds of drag with floating fish and he didn't have any drag. And I beat him in the same channel by 10 minutes. Not because I was in better shape or a stronger kicker. It was my approach through the channel. Like I knew how the current works. So I came in kind of on the shallow part, before it dropped off, I kind of rode waves in as much as I could. And I was so shallow that I could grab the reef or I could push off the reef with my gun as opposed to be in the middle against this solid stream of current and just having to exhaust myself. I've been in channels so strong where I've actually taken my anchor, thrown it, and had it lodged in the reef 20 feet, pulled myself along, grabbed the reef, thrown it, and I've gotten in that way. And those are just tricks, understanding the variables, how the ocean works. Save yourself a ton of energy, keep yourself from fatigue.
And like kind of going back to what Brian just said, like people come here, they think they do 50 laps in YMCA pool, they're confident that they can handle the ocean. And what I've noticed through tragedies, accidents, whatsoever, overconfidence in your own abilities will lead to accidents or death. Overconfidence in your partner's ability will lead to accidents and death. That's basically saying like, okay, oh, Brian, he can handle himself. I don't need to worry about him. The next thing I know, he's blacked out. Oh, Brian's a great diver. I don't need to worry about him. Or he's thinking the same way about me, and we separate. One of us runs into trouble, and one of us dies. Overconfidence in your partner's or your own ability will lead to accidents and death. And that's why when me and Brian dive, we dive without any ego. We just go out there, have fun, row a stick together. And I see a lot of kids that would like fail, and then they'll come back half an hour later. They'll be like, "Oh, well, I found this spot." I found it. Like, and I just kind of look at them like, "You guys didn't realize what you guys did to each other right there. You guys could have had a crazy accident right there. One of you guys could have really got hurt. They don't realize this stuff. So we express that a lot too.
Or that same situation. Oh, I shot this big fish and it ripped off. I needed a backup shot. Or I shot this fish and a shark came and I got taxed. Well, you shouldn't have been by yourself. That's why your partner is supposed to be there for you, to back you up.
But anyway, I know we discussed a lot about safety and whatnot, but I just don't want to see people die already. I'm over it.
No, it's a good topic, and but it still happens. People are dying, so you still need to talk about it. But I just love what you guys are doing and the way you're doing it and why you're doing it, because I think it's such a cool thing that could be kind of applied to a lot of different places and save a lot of lives.
We're so stoked with your support, Brett. Seriously, like I'm like I'm like so happy that we get a lot of support from you, from other guys from California. And, we want to see this spread. We want to see guys take it upon themselves to teach their communities and whatnot. And it's been going pretty good. We get a lot of exposure. Like I said, like if you're going to put this podcast out, reach out to Brian and I. We have the whole course outlined. It just has to be adjusted a little bit to your environment. But we give this information for free. And if you want to teach a class, great. If you got the experience to do so, we want you to do it. We want you to do it.
Because that was actually one of my questions. Somebody commented to us and said, "Oh, I wish someone taught this class where I live. Why don't you teach the class where you live?" If you have the experience and you have good experiences and good knowledge to share, it doesn't have to be at a certain level. Just disseminate the knowledge that you have. Because when you get people together, it's like if you work someplace. Right? Let's say you worked in an office building. Don't discount anyone there, from the mailroom guy to the janitor to the CEO and anyone in between. Meet everybody, know everybody. The janitor can show you a super efficient way to sweep and mop. The mail guy might show you organizational skills that you don't have. Don't discount anyone. Everybody has a different experience. Everybody has a different seed of knowledge. And it may be something similar to what you experience, but there just may be a small fractionate variable to say, you know what, that's better. I like your idea. I'm going to try that. And you're just sharing knowledge and information. So, but you got to check the egos at the door. That's the main thing. Because if you're diving with your ego, and that's why the solo divers die, it's that overconfidence in their abilities. It's not going to happen to me. I'll be fine.
Yeah, look what happened to that Australian athlete. Was it polo? He was a polo athlete.
Yeah, it's a professional athlete.
Yeah, professional athlete. He probably never thought it happened to him, and look what happened.
The
Overconfidence.
thing that I think about that too, as far as being humble, what does being humble hurt? You, you know, it doesn't make you any better or any worse than a diver if you're humble. And then when you are, your friends are more likely, younger guys would be like, wow, like if you're boastful, people are gonna know. It doesn't regardless. People aren't gonna like you. Like, and maybe they will like you. Maybe you're great, whatever. But when you're humble, you learn. It's just like you continue to learn. When you're arrogant, you ain't gonna learn shit because you don't want to listen to anybody.
We we have a we have a
I'm laughing because I know this 10-year-old kid is the most arrogant kid I ever met in my life. He thinks he knows everything. 10 years old, I'm just like, oh my God. Like you said, be humble and you learn. I'm trying to teach this kid that. And he's just like, no, 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 no. I'm just like,
yeah.
yeah.
There's a really funny local phrase that you'll say to someone. It's look with your eyes, not your mouth. Just so what that means is shut up, pay attention.
Yeah.
My
And
my dad.
And it's funny because when we first started teaching the classes, we were doing it for free. And then we had such a low enrollment. And then we're thinking, how's these kids? We're trying to share this accumulated years of knowledge and experience for free. And they're too ego blown to accept it. Oh, what do I need? What am I going to learn? I know everything already. Right. And then we decided, well, do we need to charge? Do we need to have, is it a perceived value thing where because it's free, maybe they'll think it's not worth anything? So then we talked about charging, but then we ran into, well, then we have liability. Then we need insurance.
Permits.
Then we need permits. So then we kept it free. And I think what really got the numbers up was the COVID and people starting the sport and saying, wow, people have been dying doing this. So there's gotta be some safety stuff that I need to know before I get myself in too deep. And that's when the popularity came. So now it's no longer whether it's free or costly. It's the fact that people are now interested in the knowledge, whereas before they thought they didn't need it.
And those kids that attended the class, they're stoked because when they attend the class, like I have a good friend of mine I grew up with. He made a bunch of those tagline anchors. I mean, they're like $100 a piece, and he made like 8 of them. He melted the lead, he welded the wire, drilled the pipes, cut the pipes, made the molds, did everything. He took like 12 hours to make all these, and he gave them to me for free to give to the kids. And when the kids came to the class, and I gave them all away because they didn't have these anchors and nobody sells them here, kids are super stoked, and they're like, yeah, oh yeah, we got one now. And when you come to the class, now you won't just learn stuff, you could probably score something you needed. And if there's something you needed, I'm more than happy to give it to you, or find a way to get you that item you need.
Well, you guys, honestly, thanks so much for what you do, and thanks for meeting with me via Skype. But I can't wait to. Yeah, no problem. Anytime. I mean, hey, we all can do great things together, and I hopefully I'll be able to get out to Kauai soon and dive with you guys. And if you come out here, I know Brian, you were planning to come out here, I think, or Alan. If you ever get a chance to come out here, we just got a boat this weekend, so we waiting for you.
As we talked about before too, Brett, because I usually come out annually for a family vacation. So now that I've got some connections and friends, I'll be bringing my dive gear, and I'm more than happy on a weekend to help assist teach a safety course in your guys' neighborhoods if you want to.
Oh, that would be amazing. Actually, that would be really amazing. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And how can we get in touch with you, like Longfins? What's your contact information?
You can email me at longfinsfreediving@gmail.com or aloha_spear_it on my Instagram, or longfins long_fins longfins Instagram. Yeah.
So Longfins is a public, so anybody can follow it. I think Aloha Spirit's a private. I have another private account, but that's the easiest way to reach. I mean, like I say, I get DMs from people from different countries. Mm-hmm. Like there's this one young man that lives in Grenada, and he text me stuff for information all the time. So that's the beauty of the internet, is there's no border to sharing of information.
Yeah, like the only reason my account's private because I have a lot of family stuff on there and there's a lot of world, so I kind of keep that private. But if you request me and I see you're a good guy, I'll accept your request. And if you have questions, all good. Reach out to me. Don't afraid to reach out through Longfins. We're more than happy to help anyone. Anybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You don't have to reside in Hawaii to ask a question.
Well, thanks, boys. Really appreciate it again. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for what you do and sharing all the information.